Bhadram karnebhi shrnuyama devaha Bhadram pashye makshabhiryajatraha Stirairangaihi tushtuvagam sastanubhihi Vyashemadeva yadayuhu Svastina Indro Vrdhashravaha Svastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Svastina Starkshyo Arishtanemihi Svastino Brahaspatir Dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we have entered the verse of creation, which was verse 8, and it gave us a model that pacifies our mind, hopefully, how it all came. And we have to understand, most importantly, these are models. You cannot really explain how creation came, but you can at least provide some form, some model to the mind. So, because once you understand that creation is mithya, then it doesn't really matter, because however it came, it is only an effect of its cause. So the order, we said the cause is consciousness. Okay, Aksharam Brahma. And then we did stages in verse 8. And we said stage 1, this consciousness, quote, bouges. And now we know what bouges mean, right? So it's a poetical. You say, how does Brahman bouge? How does an unchanging Brahman bouge? So that's not the point. It's just poetical. That's how to communicate these truths. So Brahman bouges, and that means just like a singer or a musician or an artist bouges when they first recognize that potential in them, and they're very surprised with joy, and it fills them with joy. And now they have an idea how this song or art is going to be painted on the canvas. So they, the next stage, from this, not only does it bouge, but now, as we said, there's a potential for universe. Okay, so that means this bouges is in reference to discovering his potential which is infinite. So we'll just go like this: infinite potential, which is of the nature of knowledge and power. What does knowledge mean? It means the blueprint for how everything is going to work, how things are going to connect, and you also need the power to do something to that knowledge. That knowledge has to reshuffle constantly. You can't just put it once. He has to constantly reshuffle, like the knowledge in your dream, in order to create movement and to create change. So this potential is what this bouging refers to. And what is the nature of this potential? It is knowledge. And then we said stage 2, we said what happens now, and this potential, what was the name for potential? Do you remember? Ana, right? Which means food. It will be consumed. Yeah, that's what we're doing now. We're consuming words and experiences. So food consumption. In other models, we will call the same potential as Maya. But we don't use Maya in this Upanishad. Now, from this potential, which is of knowledge and power, comes, we said, Hiranyagarbha. They use the word prana, but a better word is Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha, which means blueprint. Blueprint in what kind of form? Physical form or thought form? Thought form. So blueprint in thought. Just like, right, when you have this idea of this painting, potential, and then it's a thought. It's not like there's an order. You can't say first Baujas, and there's a potential, and there's a thought. It happens all at once. But you see how our minds work, so we have to speak like that. And what kind of power does Hiranyagarbha have? We said 3 powers. We said jnana or jnana. Jnana, itcha. Just think of itcha like when there's an itch, there's a desire, so you want to scratch. Itcha, which is desire, and what's the other one? Kriya. And kriya, you could say, is to put together, to sustain. It means to hold it together, and then to change it into something else, depending on what the situation is. Look at this. Right now, knowledge is reshuffling itself to position the pen here. Because of gravity acting upon this object, when I drop this, what you don't see is frame by frame falling down slowly. What's happening? This is nothing but knowledge obtaining as this pen. Knowledge is reshuffling, and you see this like one instant movement. So these 3 powers, and they are infinite. Whereas our power is, level 2. Okay. Then the next stage, from this Hiranyagarbha comes the mind and the physical world that we are now talking about. So from this comes, we say, world. In Sanskrit, Jagat, comes your sense organs. That means your ability to see, to hear, to hold objects. We take this for granted, holding, to walk, to procreate. All of this is, these capacities are within the mind. Also comes the body, physical body. Comes devas. These are other beings that we, as is coming up, we're going to invoke to help us through rituals. And also lokas. Okay, we say there's how many lokas? 14. And there is Brahma Loka at the top. And we're in the middle, and there is the lower worlds. So they all accommodate these beings. So it's a vast universe. In science, I believe I looked somewhere that they're now even saying that the Big Bang never really, it's not like there was nothing before Big Bang. Our Big Bang just arose from another parallel universe. So it's not like nothing before and then suddenly Big Bang. So they're trying to see this truth. But that's exactly what we're saying. There's no such thing as beginning here. So don't think that there was nothing, because the mind's like that. There was nothing, then Big Bang, and now there's something. There was never a time when there was nothing. Because as we said, remember that example of Earth. Earth's nature is to always manifest something. Okay? And even if there's, quote, nothing, that's still called something in potential. Okay.
The Upanishad is not talking about the gunas. Where is the gunas in this story?
Yeah, so Ernesto is talking about the guna model. See, this is Mundaka Upanishad model. The guna model is Bhagavad Gita. Different model. Yeah, they're all models.
Yeah. And what can it, because there's also 3 powers, is that?
Okay, good. Okay, so since you're asking, where would you put the gunas here? The three shaktis. Where would you put it? You could put it, actually before, because knowledge power. So this potential is nothing but these 3 gunas. Okay? Just a different model. And these 3 gunas are, remember, sattva, which is blueprint for creation. There's a raja guna, which is the power to do something from that blueprint. And there's tama guna, which is the material. First there was? Okay. It bulged. Interesting. Then what happened?
Then it became the full potential.
Kijk.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, it bulged and it became a potential. And then what?
Unconscious potential also.
Then emerged the blueprint.
And then from the blueprint, and then from the potential came the blueprint? Really? And is this blueprint physical or subtle? Subtle. Okay. So when does physical come? Oh, so first the blueprint, then the physical. Okay. And what does the physical include? Okay. Okay. The mind. Interesting. Okay. The 5 elements. Okay. And then when we open our eyes, what do we see? The world. And then in this world, when we ask, who created this world, what name do we use? Ishvara. And what is Ishvara? Since we started out with consciousness. All knowledge. What is Ishvara? All knowledge, all power. Okay, that means, or you can also say Ishvara is nothing but consciousness.
Okay. Brahman makes consciousness. Brahman was before. Was the essence of Ishvara.
No. Same thing. So Brahman, consciousness. That's the reality. When we say who is the creator of this world, we say Ishvara. But Ishvara is nothing but Brahman. Yeah. So Ishvara is the Lord, right? The Lord. God in English.
We are a jiva.
Hmm?
We same. We are jiva. We are Brahman. Ishvara is Brahman. In that way, we are the same. In consciousness.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
See, there's many different ways to look at this. Sometimes they will say that Ishvara is actually referring to potential. Okay, so we say Ishvara is potential. That's one Upanishad. Another Upanishad says Ishvara is consciousness. Don't get confused. You need flexibility. We don't want to be rigid. Because remember, there's only one reality looked at from different standpoints. So you can't say, yeah, but this Upanishad said that Ishvara is actually Maya or Maya, manifesting. Yeah, that's true. No, Ishvara is Brahman consciousness. Yeah, that's also true. Brahman Satyam Jagat Mithya. Yeah, so in other words, as we said, started out, this is all Mithya. And this Mithya, you can even call Ishvara. So in other Upanishads, you say this Ishvara is nothing but Mithya. And then what is Satyam? Brahman. But is there any difference between Mithya and Satyam? See, so you always end up on the same conclusion. Okay, so we're at stage 4, finally, stage 4. Now this fella over here has limited knowledge, limited desire, limited doing, and obviously they want to be a happy chappy. So they will engage in actions and they will collect points, punya, papa. And this is the whole topic of Bhagavad Gita that we're doing. And this punya papa can't always express itself in this life. I mean, some of it does, but most of it doesn't, because we do so much stuff. See, if you rob a bank, right? And you rob like a bank right now, and then you die tomorrow. To whom is that, and all of the damage to all those people who now had their banks emptied out? Because they're hurt, and you robbed them all. The system is designed in such a way that it has to come back to the original door. It finds you. So that when a person gets reborn, they find themselves in a tough spot. They don't know why. I can't remember. What did I, God, do to deserve this? You just don't remember. But that's how the system is, according to Vedanta. It always finds you. So whatever you're experiencing in this life, the reason why you have this life and not somebody else's life is because of some other person in a previous life. Whatever they did has contributed to you being here. They certainly didn't rob a bank. Or maybe they did, and so you wanted to repent, I'll be a good person.
And it's as a passerby, if you meet somebody who has misery,
Yeah.
do you think, okay, it's your past life who is living here now, or are you going to help?
I'm getting the question.
Are you compassionate when you see somebody who is in misery, or you just tell them it's your fault, it's your past life?
Yeah.
Sure. So look, brilliant question. So if you have the ability to help, but you don't help, that is your papam. Like that.
It sounds rather harsh. That what happens to you is the result of your karma. I see this beggar laying on the floor in India. That's what
Yeah, and we can even show this right now. Suppose I see someone over there and they're going, oh God, what did I do to deserve this? That's what they're thinking. But what am I going? Haha, he deserves it. See, so in other words, my thinking is not in touch with the reality. So this means in that moment, I'm not only connecting, not doing what is to be done, but I'm also suppressing my empathy. And that empathy is going to cost me dearly next time I have to see the world as one expression of Ishvara. Because to see Ishvara in all things, you need empathy. So this means something so small as not reaching out and helping. That has a spillover effect. And it costs the person relatability, devotion. Because devotion can only become true if I have empathy. Empathy is the mark of devotion. Devotion comes from empathy. Yeah, so it always carries forward. There's no escape. So even if someone's suffering, even then, it is your test. How are you going to respond in that moment? If you can't do anything, if it's beyond your help to, to go in there and tell these little kids to turn the music down, and if you can do something, okay. If you're afraid, then maybe call, some whatever. You've done something. Call the police or something. I don't know how they do it here, but suppose I can't do anything. Okay, then you can't do anything. But if you can do something and you don't, that's a little bit of papam there for you. Yeah. And when you do something, you feel that strength, like, yes, I've done something. When I was small, in about 25, I was riding the train. And in the train in Sydney, you've got these, there was a lot of kids there, youngsters my age, and they were very loud in the train. And I always felt this compulsion, I don't know where it's from, to say something, because people never say anything almost. They just sort of sit there and they just, bear the noise. But in me, there's always this kind of, whatever you want to call it, just, say something. And every time I did, there was one time when they were like, well done, well done. And I felt that we all wanted to say something, but no one had the courage to say something. And I said something, and there was never a time when I didn't say something. And every time I said something, it left me with strength inside. And that strength greatly contributed to confidence. And that confidence greatly contributes to now even. So like this, whenever we act within this order, which is a manifestation of this potential, you either benefit or you come down. Papam, you come down or you come up. Yeah. So, That happy chappy now does actions and they get punya papam, and that punya papam is parked in your causal, we just call it causal body, call it wherever you want. Just give it a name, bugu bugu or something, causal body. Okay? Why is it called causal body? Because it causes all your thoughts, it causes your desires, right? When you have a desire, it's the cause of desires, because all your desires are parked in the causal body, and your general impressions, how you are, called samskaras. So, right, you have two kids, as I said today, right? You have two brothers born, and one of the brother is deeply into computers. The other brother is into, novels, like writing. Like, why? I can't explain. And so, based on the samskaras they come with, neither parents are digital savvy nor writers, and yet they both come totally different interests. Where does this come from? Well, according to Vedas, it comes from samskaras. That is why some kids, they get born and they are brilliant in mathematics. Just natural. And you're brilliant in English. Someone else is brilliant in logic, while someone else is brilliant in art. It's not an accident. It's not gotten from genetics, because where are you going to find love for spirituality inside DNA? When DNA is nothing but molecules, and molecules are nothing but atoms. Where are you going to find love for music inside molecules, inside atoms? You don't, because those very atoms that make up genes are the very same atoms that make up the world. I don't see in this wall singing, I love music, I love music. And yet it's made of the same atoms that makes up your genes. So there's a different cause. You can't say that your genes are a cause for your inclinations, because you don't find those inclinations in your molecules, in the molecules of your genes. So that's how we know that the personality doesn't come from genes. It comes from something much, much greater than that. Take a carbon atom. Where are you going to find a love for observing inside a carbon atom? That's why we say it is from the cause. That which causes your inclinations, your personality, and your talents to shine. Then we talked about rituals. So this guy over here that is born, that observes the world, how do they start? So this is the next transition. They start with rituals. Everyone starts with rituals. Don't think of just Vedic rituals, any kind of ritual. We all have rituals in life, right? What ritual do you have? Wake up and meditate. That's a ritual. Okay, rituals. Now, in the Vedic times, they had what's called Agnihotra. Agnihotra. And that's a fire ritual. So you have a bunch of sticks. And then in the center, you would throw oblations, and then you got smoke. Now, how many smoke types? 7. So this means you need to observe 7 smoke types. You have to have patience. So the indirect benefit is viveka, to discern these 7, and patience, to wait for these 7 to occur. And then you send an intention inside the oblation, and then throw it inside the fire. And the fire sends that oblation to, where is the Deva? To the Deva. Like Agni Deva or Indra. I think I'll talk about Devas later. Indra Deva. Okay? And then Indra Deva, sends you that punyam. Now, let's do a little bit of science, because it sounds a little bit woo-woo so far. Why does this work? It's a kind of a presupposition implying that it works. But let's take a prayer. What is a prayer? An action. So prayer is an action. Okay. And in the universe, every action has a reaction. even your thought, your judgment about someone, that is an action on part of the thought. That too has a reaction. So reaction in Sanskrit is called karma. Karma. So even if you think bad thoughts about someone, there is a karma on that. What kind of karma is it? Well, it ensures that you will continue thinking that thought again. You think it once, oh, it's not a big deal. No. It's already ingrained a notion to think it again. Okay. Every action has... Now, how much is a prayer? How long is a prayer? Let's say 5 minutes. Very simple, not much activity. But what about a Agnihotra? Hours. So much complication, so much complexity. Remember how I said in the taxonomy, the Bloom's taxonomy, at the top, you have create. When you do your homework. Is it hard to able to verbalize what we're doing? It's hard, isn't it? But the very difficulty is what produces more punyam. So in that same way, Agnihotra is hard, but the very difficulty is what produces much more punyam than a prayer can. That's the idea. For every action, there is a reaction.
So Andre, so if you train yourself to have positive thoughts and good intentions all the time, for hours a day, it should have the same working, no?
How are you going to do that? Because then you can't really respond objectively to situations if you're always positive.
No, but it's about having it's like offering it's like a bit like karma yoga. Offering
Sure.
your thoughts to with a good intention.
Absolutely,
So
yeah. Yeah, that's
you can also do it inside, that's what I mean.
Good. Absolutely. So what Simon is saying is before any action, you offer a good intention. Just like we said, it's a yajna, right? How will I benefit us today? How will I benefit us today? In fact, when I woke this morning, exactly what I said yesterday, I said, how can I help my dear students today? How can we connect and have a lovely time today? Just one small intention, and it sets the frame. So, yeah, good, Simon.
Is that you do a ritual, like really focus on one thing? Because you're training with a lot of focus. That's the basic. In theory, can you also change the actions for something else? And you do that with the same focus, with the same intention? Is it also working then? Is it more about the focus and the training than the action by itself?
Good question. It is both. In the Vedic rituals, we have to do certain procedures accurately. Like the 7 fires, they have to be there and have to throw the oblations in the center, not on the left or the right.
Yeah, the focus.
But also, it says that if I just throw it mechanically, because I've been doing it before, that reduces the efficacy of the whole homa, of the whole offering. So intention is very, very important. It's probably more important than the action itself, because intention guides action. Intention guides action. So all one has to really do, if this is all complex, just have a good intention. Before doing anything, I'm going to connect. I'm going to make sure that we, have a great time and we walk away learned, like a learned students, walk away with, dignity, with, confidence, and then you just relax, let that thought go, and then go connect, and and underneath that intention will guide your actions. Intention. So while we're doing this Agnihotra with the right action and the right intention, then the next verse, and inside the fires, what can happen is this fella here, if they engage, sometimes it happens, they can become arrogant and they can start to say that I've got these karma kanda. All I have to do is just rituals, and that's the end of life, and all this knowledge, you don't need that. So in other words, they switch themselves off from possibilities. And this can become a problem. And so what the verse says, verse 8, is that it builds a lineage which becomes blind. So they are trying to help, but they are innocently creating an error. They're innocently holding you. They're not creating errors, they're just holding you at a certain level. A duty of a teacher is to ask the question, am I stuck? Am I stuck? Because if I am stuck, my students will be stuck. Whereas in their case, they're not asking this. And so it ends up creating a blind lineage. And then the verse 9, Upanishads calls them immature children, not to criticize, but to simply point out that merely doing good things, getting punyam, going to heaven, coming down, only to repeat that again, ends up doing what children do. They play with toys, have a good time, get their candy, and just rinse and repeat. So you can see what a strong statement, isn't it? Balaha, children, immature children. Now you say this to someone, how dare you call me a child? But this is not my words, this is the Upanishad's words. Like literally, Balaha is a child. It's like a mother who's concerned. Now, verse 11 gives one step higher. Tapaha shraddhe ye hi upavasanti aranye shantaha vidvam shaha bhaikshya charyam charantaha suryad varena te virajaha paryanti yatra amrtaha sa purushaha hi avyayatma. Verse 11. So they're offered now one step higher by the Upanishads, which is still within lower, apara. It's still apara-vidya. Any meditation is still apara-vidya. It still gives you limited results. And they are typically, in the Vedic times, vanaprastha or sannyasis. Vanaprastha means you have retreated into the forest, or sannyasi, you've taken on the ochre robe. But in modern world, we don't do this. We don't have to do this because you got, your own private room. You don't have to go to the forest, please. I'll have no students then. So now what are they given? They're given, they dedicate to meditation because they have simplified their lives and they've reduced, they just simplify their life. Okay, so now they're given meditation. This sounds familiar? The world of meditation? Look at that. The world of meditation has entered. What came before meditation? Rituals. So we are now advancing into verse 12. So now as they do meditation, they become more and more qualified, their mind, for the knowledge. Verse 12, approaching the Guru. Parikshya lokan karma chitan brahmanaha nirvedam ayatna asti akritaha kritena tadvijnanartham sagurum eva abhigachet samit panihi shrotriyam brahmanishtam. In other words, they start to feel a void. Even with meditation, they start to feel that I am, increasingly discontent even about having a pure mind. They call it as highly sattvic, clear, pure mind. Even that starts to become a source of dissatisfaction because they say, is this it? And they start to realize things like, wow, anything that I get, there's a limitation. A weekend break leads to 5 days of work. 5 days of work leads to a weekend break. Even retirement is fleeting. Wealth is lost. It's accumulated and it's lost. Kings rise to glory and then they fall. 1 year of labor only gives me how many days of holiday? Few days, right? It's always like this. You work so hard only to get just a fraction in return. So the return on your investment gets questioned. And thus, Even in Mahabharata, there's a story of Yudhishthira, who goes to, after at the end of Mahabharata, he goes to heaven. And he sees his Kauravas there. What? The Kauravas, the ones who have been on the side of Adharma, are in heaven? What's going on? And my brothers, where are they? Where's my brothers? They're in hell. Even then, and then what happens? He goes and gets his brothers visits them in hell. I think he stays there for a while. I'm not sure. But then they go to heaven, and the Kauravas go to hell, Naraka. So even doing the right thing, like the Pandavas, even they alternate between Swarga, Naraka, Swarga, Naraka. Even if you do all you could to save the society, Arjuna did a big thing, and he went to Naraka. And then he goes to hell. Because of his past deeds. He has to exhaust them. But for how long did he go to hell? A very short amount of time. And he goes to heaven then, including all the 5 brothers, right? All of them go to heaven for a long time. Whereas the Kauravas spend a very short time in heaven and a very long time in hell. But it's still within lokas, both lokas. So you start to question this and you say, is it really worth it to just keep on alternating like this? And thus, consequently, you enter the world of yoga. Yoga asana, spirituality. You enter various forms of spirituality that says something very interesting. They all say the same thing. They say, you are small, and I'm going to show you something. I'm going to tell you what to do so that you can become big. I'm going to give you an action to become big. But your mind starts to work and say, no, this is not possible. Because every action can only do 4 things. And whatever I'm being offered is none other than an action. So what are these 4 things that an action can do? All action, no matter who tells you what, any spirituality can, you can only, with action, you can create. You can create something new. Can you create consciousness? Because it's already created, it's already existent. You can modify something. Modify. Can you modify consciousness? No. You can purify the mind. Here you can modify your trajectory. Here you can purify your mind. Is consciousness dirty? No. And you can reach something. So I can apply an action and I can reach from here to there. Can you reach consciousness? Because it is sarvagatam, it is all pervasive. So action only has the power to create something, modify, create something new, like create a new lifestyle, create a new story, a new script in your life. Wonderful. You can modify the script. It can modify your house, your furniture, your hair, right, your clothes, your body, whatever. It can purify the body. It can purify the mind. It can purify your environment. You can reach certain things on a soccer field from here to over there. I can reach something. But all of these 4 do not touch consciousness. Therefore, I'm told create a new routine in your life. Here, modify your routine. Here, purify your mind. Here, let me tell you how to reach something with nirvikalpa or savikalpa samadhi. And then you realize this is a contradiction because consciousness is already here, it's already all pervasive, and any action always creates what kind of a result? Limited or limitless? Limited. Why limited? because the action lasts for always, it's time bound for, let's say, 10 minutes. 10 minutes always produces 10 minutes worth of result. If you meditate for 30 minutes, you're going to have a very different result for 30 minutes. So by the virtue of action always being within time, it's always going to be time-bound result. Time-bound result. And what you are looking for, remember how we said that? Now that I am here in this body, because of Hiranyagarbha's, manifest the world, and I find myself, who is the limitless one, bound in this body, I can't stand my smallness. I can't stand my smallness, so naturally I will apply action to get rid of my smallness, but action is never going to get you to your limitless nature, consciousness. So you have to discover, how is it that I already enjoy what I'm seeking? How is it that I'm the seeker, me the seeker, and that which I'm seeking is already here, the seeker and the sought. Therefore, you go into the process of discovery. Discovery. And then Vedanta, that's knowledge. Discovering what? Discovering the nature of the one who is dissatisfied. Who is dissatisfied? The I who is doing the action, creating, modifying, purifying, and reaching. That I. So you want to now attack the nature of I. And this I, another word for I, is self. So that's why we call it, I need knowledge about the self. So discovery about self. Self-knowledge. Which is Vedanta. Or Mundaka Upanishad. Okay? So this is a natural progress, how the mind moves forward. And what happens next? Now that you're qualified, owing to your recognition that these are limited, you eventually start to do the right things, because you know that you're never outside the laws. There's always a consequence. And that enough of that punyam somehow connects you to the right people, to the right friends with the right disposition, so the right people with smiley faces, okay? And they say, go over here, and you go over there. And you ask a question, and they say, go over here, and eventually you come to a guru. And what kind of a guru is this, according to the verse? 2 words, a Shrotriya and a Brahmanishta. What kind of a guru is it? One who is a Shrotriya, that means versed in the scriptures. So what does this mean? It means they don't carry their own stuff. They don't project their own stuff. They simply speak in the name of the scriptures. They simply point out what the scriptures are saying. That's a Shrotriya. That means they're very familiar with what the scriptures are talking about, the Upanishads. And they're a Brahmanishta. That means knower of Brahman. That means they're already established in what the scriptures are pointing out. The scriptures are talking about Brahman. They've already gone through the scriptures through their guru, and now they are doing the exact same thing as their guru. They're established in Brahman. Now, you could have sometimes a scholar, and a scholar can be very well versed. That means they can be a Shrotriya. We have a lot of this. They can recite almost any verse. But they're not a Brahmanishta. You can also have a Brahmanishta, but they're not a good communicator. They know the scriptures, but they cannot put it in words to connect with the audience. So look at this. This is 2 parts that makes up the guru. You need to communicate well to transfer the knowledge to the students, and also be speaking from authenticity, which is a Brahmanishta. So guru is not just a Shrotriya, is not just a Brahmanishta, it is a both. And that's the one who this guy has, I think it's this guy, right? Who has found the Guru. Right? Through all of this, looping, jumping left and right. And who is the ideal student? So we talked about the ideal Guru. Who is the ideal student?
We are.
Problem solved. Curious, open-minded, friendly, clarity of reasoning, discernment, thoughtfulness, consideration. Anything else? Intense yearning, yeah. That's the most important, one of the most important. My teacher in Chiang Mai said, humility. Not taking the complexions. Just humility. I come, I want to know. I don't know, I want to know. Intense yearning and humility. So that's a student. So this is the journey of a person who was born from creation, went through so many lifetimes, and has now come to the Guru, who is showing him or her the truth of the very seeker and the whole. So chapter 2, Brahman and creation. So chapter 2, section 1. So now we're going back into self-knowledge because you have found the Guru and you're now back into the knowledge. So let's see what the student learns from the Guru. Chapter 2. Tat etat satyam yatha sudiptat pavakat vispulingaha sahasrashaha prabhavante sa rupaha tatha aksharat vividhaha somya bhavaha prajayante tatracha eva api yanti. This starts with an example. How many can come from the one? How many sparks? There's one fire and there are many sparks. And it wants to then compare this to how from one Brahman comes many infinite creations. Now, what is the nature of fire? Give me two qualities of fire. It's hot and bright. Hot and bright. So now you have a spark. Its nature is also hot and bright. So there's no essential difference. For a time being, they seem to be kind of, away, but there's no essential difference between the two. So does the spark, if it's bright, does it need any other light to illuminate itself? No, because its nature is self-illumining. So even if it's a small spark, it's as much self-illumining, it's equally self-illumining as the fire. There's no essential difference. Now the verse wants to show that it seems like the sparks are, right, if you look at it from the standpoint of their separation, like it's different. But they're not essentially different because their essence is exactly the same. And like this, you have one consciousness. Okay, that's gone. You have one consciousness. And because of many minds, it seems now that, right, of many living beings, it seems like we are different from that one consciousness. Now, a good example of this is take a cup and you have all pervasive space. Okay, it's pervading, it's everywhere. Now, there's no cup right now. Now, when the cup gets born, the space, see, right now, space, right? Now, cup comes, boom, cup. Now, the space inside, is it different from the space outside? No. But from the point of view of within the cup, especially if the cup thinks that the space inside is limited to me, then it's going to take that space inside different from the space outside. Because it's never been told the space inside is exactly the same space as outside. It's never been told that because it hasn't gone through this journey. So it takes its boundaries, the boundaries of the mind, the boundaries of the body, and it says, I am this much. But actually, when it says I, is referring to the space. The very I, the space, is actually the total space. The cup is just a temporary condition for the time being. It has no bearing on the space. It doesn't actually limit the space, but only seemingly, as long as there's a cup. Only seemingly, which is not a big deal. So now this cup understands, so it seems that I am bound, right, by the boundaries. But in actuality, I cognitively recognize that the space, the I here, is the very same I all around. It's an all-pervasive I. And I can appreciate that there's a certain limitation for the time being, but that limitation is not real. The limitation is only owing to the cup. Yeah, so in other words, that which reincarnates, that which passes on, is the water. So the water can be equated to the mind. So the mind just, so you drop the physical body, and then you just pour the water into another physical body, and you continue like that. Yeah. But does the contents inside this cup, does it spoil the space? So suppose I have some poison here, some detergent, green, solid, dense detergent, and I put it in here. And I move this cup. Is there any greenness over here? No. So no matter what I put, whatever mind you have inside this body, whatever mind you've got, it doesn't affect consciousness, that which lights up the contents of the mind. So that's the example. So now the spark in the example here is conditioned. It's conditioned temporary. We could call this condition, another word, an upadi, conditioner. So fire, spark is, you could say, the fire is conditioned, right? And the spark is an upadi. It's temporarily, right, creating that shape, but it's not affecting its essence. Another example is of upadi. Suppose I put this water inside this cup. This cup is shaping the water, isn't it? If I put this water inside a vessel, then that vessel is going to shape that water. So the cup or the vessel is an upadi. It's conditioning the contents. But is it changing the contents? No. Another example of upadi is, for example, you have electricity. One electricity flows through appliances, and those appliances seem to condition the electricity in a form of heat, in a form of light, in the form of fan. Has it actually affected the electricity? No. But when it flows through an appliance, it seems like electricity is as good as the spinner, the heater, the warmer, and so on. Or sunlight. Put a colored glass here, and the sunlight is striking through the glass. It's going to be colored. Is the sunlight actually colored? No. So the glass becomes upadi because it's seemingly conditioning the contents. The contents remaining free all the time, but due to the upadi, it seems to be conditioned. So in the same way, the spark of the fire is, right, it's conditioned. It's conditioned by an upadi. So now you have the same example. Brahman is conditioned, seemingly conditioned by upadi. Therefore, one substance, one reality is now appearing as a person, as that sound outside, as you. Let's see what it says about this Brahman in the next verse. And this will come tomorrow.
But Andre, when you say upadi, always get stuck somewhere. What is the glass? What is conditioning this spark?
Yeah, we said the potential. Remember potential? Potential, knowledge, and power. So potential manifests the glass, and then consciousness pervading itself in a form of a glass is now seemingly conditioned by the size and shape of the glass. Because remember, there's only one reality, Brahman. That reality has the potential to manifest forms. That potential, you could say, is the conditioner. So now when one substance is through and through this upadhi, operating through this upadhi, it seems like it is now operating as one person and another person and one form and another form. We're not talking about conditioning at the level of the psychology. You're talking about conditioning of the psychology. I'm talking about conditioning at the macrocosm. We said the potential, called, right, in normal language we call it Maya, just potential. That potential manifests itself as an upadhi. And so when consciousness, which is nothing but that upadhi is nothing but consciousness, is pervading it, it's as good as that upadhi. So now what's the purpose of this verse? It wants to show you that even though it seems individuated, that individuation is only due to upadhi. You remove the upadhi, there is no form, there is no condition. So this means we can be okay with upadhis. Does the colored glass affect the nature of the light? Does your mind, which is an upadhi, affect your consciousness? No.
Always stays the same, whatever.
Exactly. It's always one and the same, pure, uncontaminated consciousness. So what about your thoughts? Are your thoughts upadhis? Yeah. And now you want to fix your thoughts. They're just upadhis. And upadhi is nothing but consciousness.
Several examples, please explain once again the spark and fire.
Spark and fire, sure. So, see, okay, Upanishads always starts with a relatable example. And it shows that you have the cause, which is the fire, and you have an effect, which is a spark. The fire is hot and bright. The effect is also hot and bright. First. Second, it then says that this spark is as though, the fire is as though conditioned. This as though conditioned, we call this upadhi. It makes it seem like it's now a spark. The upadhi makes the fire seem like it's a spark. Good? The mind, right, the container, the body container, makes it seem like consciousness is bound here. So the body is upadhi. It's a conditioner. It is that which as though lends its attributes to something else. Like the glass, the color of the glass red, it as though lends its attributes to the light. So now the light, which is always white, seems conditioned. But has it actually taken on the attributes? No. That's why we say upadhi is that which as though lends its attributes to something else. What is that something else? More on this tomorrow. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.